It's been a while since I talked about everything. The last time was right before Sergeant Bering was removed, or transferred from the case. My life hasn't been the easiest since that night. I've been trying to just move on, but after consulting my therapist, she recommended that I do this, in order to forgive myself in that part of my life. It was really weighing on me, and I felt obligated to speak up now, with Robbie's passing. I hope this will be the last you hear from me. I really want to point out that there's always been this belief that twins are super close, and that it's not normal to dislike your twin, but the reality was, we never got along. I was born 6 minutes before my sister Hannah. We were considered mirror twins. You couldn't really tell by looking at us, but if you looked hard enough, you could see the little variances in our appearance. They were opposite to each other, as well as her being left-handed, and I was right. Growing up, she always had difficulty when it came to writing. They only taught us the right-handed way, and it just didn't click for her that way. She tried, but she'd get so frustrated, eventually she had to try left-handed, so the other kids would make fun of her for being different and whatnot. I should have stood up for her looking back. I didn't really understand at the time what was so hard about it, but she'd spend all of her time outside of chores, alone, practicing, writing with anything she could find. Sticks, stones. She especially liked to go down to where the property ended, the river's edge, and take one of the smooth river rocks and scratch it on the flat boulders that line the river's bend. It's like she would hide out down there. It was a shameful thing for her, even though I thought it was silly. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but she was tormented for a while about it. And you know how things like that stick with you when you're that young. She definitely had a fear of being left out for being different, so I think that's really where that started for her. I was definitely more outspoken, more outgoing than her. I could tell that she really disliked that I got along and had so many friends growing up. It's like she'd almost try and mimic my behavior from time to time, but it just came off as odd. And I think she resented me for that. And I don't know if I heard this correctly from a previous testimony, but I didn't threaten Isaac. When we saw him hang out with Robbie at the market the one day, that was the first time either of us had seen him in English clothes, and it was Robbie that offered for us to come hang out with them. Hannah was a little hesitant at first, but I eventually talked her into it, even skimmed some money from the till to buy some English clothes while we were out. We became pretty good friends at first, bonding over our day trips to Columbus, going bowling, that kind of stuff. Pretty innocent at first, but things began to change as the months went on. There was clearly tension between us. I think there was a developing rift between Robbie and Isaac. They both clearly liked me, not that I saw them in that way, and Hannah was jealous that I was getting so much attention. How was that my fault? It's like she'd get mad at me. It was her choice to dress so different than me, all those dark clothes. It was like now that we had a bit of freedom, she did everything she could to be different than me, and then blamed me when things didn't go her way. Things took a turn after she found a Ouija board at one of the antique malls during an outing. We didn't even know what it was until Robbie told us. I thought it was creepy, but you could tell that her and Isaac were curious, so she bought it, and we used it down at the old Pioneer Cemetery, a small hidden plot just off a gravel road with a lone oak tree in the center. Kinda curved towards the valley, so lone cars wouldn't see us with our flashlights and candles. It was a place that we could call our own and not be bothered. We spent many nights there, trying to connect with spirits, asking the bored questions. Nothing really happened most of the time, until that last night. I thought it was just, theatrics, a dramatic display for her to get attention, but now I really do think she opened herself up to something that night. I'm afraid that maybe we all did. I just remember how transfixed we were on that ritual book, flipping through the rough-edged pages full of complex seals. We had no business even messing with that. We still don't know what repercussions came of it, but in happier, more naive times, we decided on that full moon of Halloween. What we were conjuring, I'm not even sure we came to a united idea. We kinda just let Hannah take the reins after a while. She seemed like she had studied a good chunk of the book and was more knowledgeable about what to expect. I spent hours with her making pulp paper and sewing one of our traditional faceless cloth dolls, while she traced the incantations with an inked quill. We were prepared for the most part, until a few days leading up to that fateful night, when something strange happened. You could feel that fall was just around the corner, and I had woken up in the middle of the night. Facing the window, I remembered seeing the moonlight trickling in through the swaying tree limbs. I just assumed it was the sound of the tree branches scraping at the side of the house, but then I heard it again, almost like a crunching sound. I noticed there was a heaviness in the room. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like there was something else in the room with us. At that point, I rolled over, figuring maybe Hannah had woken too, when I glimpsed that her bed was empty, her quilt having been pushed over like she had gotten up. Then the dripping sound started. Sitting up, I craned my neck in the direction of the sound. It was coming from just past the other side of her bed. That's when I saw it. Hannah was sitting on the floor, wringing a white, now bloodied dove over a glass bowl. I wanted to say something. Was I actually dreaming? I was too frightened to speak. She was whispering to herself, chanting, as the blood drained from that poor lifeless bird. That was the first time that I was ever afraid of her. I tried to tell Isaac and Robbie about that night, and about how I thought that we shouldn't follow through with the ritual. And maybe they'd agree to call the whole thing off, but they were committed, and didn't take me seriously. Maybe I was overreacting, and I guess I felt like I was in too deep to back out. It's taken years to recover the memories of that night. It's a blur of flickering candles, chanting, the stinging burn of each of us slicing our palms, and trickling our blood onto the faceless doll that laid at the center of the smudged charcoal sigil. The rising growl of an uncontrollable force, paired with the overwhelming stench of rotten flesh and sulfur. The repeated knocks encircling us, the chaos of trying to escape, kicking over candles in a blind panic, as hellish fermenting flames engulfed the barn around us, welcoming the dark entities that emerged from the center of the floor. It's hard to move on after something like that, finding out that we were meant to be the burnt offerings, and that I was originally supposed to be the stabbed sacrifice, not Rebecca. I know later that night they found the bloody ritual knife in Robbie's car, but he didn't stab her. I did.